Hello, my name is Leah Monique Harton, and today I have with me our coordinator of elementary instruction and the local reading specialist. Today we're going to discuss our data from Summer Learning Camp. We're going to analyze and interpret the data so we can make next steps for the 2024-2025 school year. When we did this, we decided, when we discussed this with the coordinator of instruction, we decided that we were going to do assessments on using the iReady diagnostic and the iReady literacy tasks. So what you see here, I'm going to show you grades K, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to look at the literacy tasks for grades K and 1, and we're going to see if they had gains or losses. Then we're going to compare their data from the end of the year to the summer. As we look at this data, I want you to look closely, and I want us to share some celebrations that you see. And I also want you to look at it and see what are some things we need to adjust for next year. Just to give you a little background information, we had 2 summer learning camp sites. One was Clanton Elementary School. Included in that site was Verbena, Thorsby, and Isabella. The other site was at Jemison, and included in that site was Thorsby. And so I'm going to share the data where I was located, and this was at Jemison. Excuse me. So what you see here, this is kindergarten. And I was very impressed. We didn't have as many students to participate in summer learning camp for kindergarten. These are the ones that we assessed. If you notice, this is the iReady literacy task letter naming. The goal was 37 letters. And if you look at the scores at the end of the year, you see the scores here. This is letter naming for summer learning camp. And look at the number, it was by half and half. And look, and I think this is a celebration here. Of the 6 students that we assessed, 3 of them gained at least 14 points or more. So I think that's worth celebrating.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
That's awesome.
Also with the losses, we only had like 1 student lost 1 letter, and we had some 9 and 10. Just looking at this data here, can you all, anybody make some suggestions or what you think may have caused them to lose to some of those letters?
I wonder about their attendance. Those who lost, what was their attendance compared to those who gained?
Yeah, good point. That's true. Now, what I did notice there was 1 teacher, and I noticed, I think what helped them with their gains each day, she will pull them back at the table and flash cards and do individual instruction with them. So I think that helped as well. Look at this here. I want to show you this data here. At the end of the year, there were 67% of students on level. Below level, there were 33%. This is only focusing on our letter naming right now. At the end of the summer, 33% were on level and 67% were below. Let's look at the entire puzzle here. Even though they did not benchmark, half of them made gains. So that's what we're looking at. Sometimes it's impossible to make the goal, but what we're looking at is that most of them made gains. So that's a celebration. So let's go down. Let's look at our letter word sound fluency. The goal for that is 34 sounds. If you look here, the end of the year, this is the data, summer learning camp, and look here. Most of them made gains. We only had 1 child to go back and just to take note, this student has an IEP. So if you look at this, what do you notice? Who wants to share something?
Great progress. Wonderful. And most are at benchmark. Not only gains, but the majority are well over benchmark.
Right. So we know that whatever the instruction that the teacher had implemented this summer worked. Because you look at it, the gains, 83%, loss, 17%. At the end of the year, on level, there were 50% of the students there. Below level, 50%, so it's half and half. At the end of summer learning camp, 67% of the students were on level and only 33% was below. So whatever instruction that was taking place really worked with the letter word sound
That's
fluency.
what I was gonna ask you, what do you feel like it was? Do you think it was any, like, the phonics first stuff she was doing, or do you feel it was more?
I think it was a combination of things. As you stated, she did the phonics first. As I stated earlier, she did some individual instruction, pulling the students back. So I think it was just a combination of
Did
things.
she use the 95% curriculum?
Some days, yes.
I think her having smaller groups helped a lot, you know.
Yes, that's
Smaller
true.
kids
Mhm.
rather than a full class, I think helped her.
Looking at our pseudo words, they had to gain 5 words, and this is basically nonsense words, blending words together. If we look here, excuse me, this is the end of the year. This is the summer learning camp. Look at the number of gains here. Everybody except for one student made a gain. And just to note here, Ian, he's an ELL student.
But all of them met benchmark, so yay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%, that's great.
Mhm. Do you all notice anything else? Do I want to share anything else? Okay. Let's move on to first grade. With the first grade students, we did 2 assessments as well. We did the pseudo words and we did passage reading fluency. If you notice here, let me take this off.
That's right.
If we notice here, we had a few more students. Stacy, how many students, can you remember how many students we,
In first grade,
in first
there was
grade?
probably, I think, 45.
Okay, around 45 students. So we had a total of around 45 students that took the assessment. We're gonna start with the pseudo words. The goal for the pseudo words, 9 words. If you look here, we had a 59% gains, 41% loss. But as I stated earlier, keep in mind, even though the students did not benchmark, they made gains. On level, at the end of the year, 22% of the students were on level, 73% of the students were below level. At the end of summer learning camp, we went from 22% being on level to 32% being on level. We went from 73% being below to 68% being below. So that's great. So just look here. And the pseudo words in first grade are they're somewhat difficult.
They are difficult.
Yes.
Very hard.
So this kind of look, this side here, this column here are the gains. And if you notice in first grade, they didn't make as many gains as they did in kindergarten, but they did make gains. So if you notice, what do you notice? Looking at these 2 columns here, what do you notice?
More students gained than lost.
Yes,
And if they did lose, they didn't lose a whole lot.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. Stacy, what would you think? Because Stacy, she was also, at Jefferson with me. What do you think contributed to this, some of the success of these students in first grade?
Smaller groups, you know, than a regular year. And I think the 95% with the, you know, where they had all the little manipulatives and everything really helped.
I think also, I like the fact that the students were not in the same classroom the entire time.
Yeah, that's true.
They rotated to each classroom and they were able to focus on specific skills with a particular teacher. So I think sometimes changing the environment or the atmosphere helps. So I think that was a contributing factor as well. Okay, this is first grade still. This is the passage reading fluency. The goal was 60 words per minute. We did have some gains. 70% of our students increased, 30% lost or stayed the same. At the end of the year, 3% were on level. At the end of summer learning camp, it was 3% still. Below grade level, so if you notice, We did have gains, but the gains were not enough to make a difference.
But I mean, you had a 70% gain, and you gotta consider, these are your tier 3 students. These are the lowest students in the whole
Yes.
school system.
And even
For to
that-
have 70% gain with the
Yes.
lowest students in the
And
system.
60
And
words
60
per
words,
minute is
yes.
a lofty.
That is
Yes.
awesome, that is awesome, and
Yes.
that's what you have to look at.
Yes.
Good point. And that's one thing I forgot to bring out. All of the students that we're discussing today, they have a student reading improvement plan. So you're right, Tammy. It's very important to know.
And a lot of these students are EL, because Jemison has a lot of EL population, so, you know, for them to make gains is great.